All right, we're here with Shaun Stoker, one of the directors of Ray White Erskineville, Surry Hills, one of the best auction operators inside Ray White. Just inside your tenure at Ray White, you've done more than 1,000 auction campaigns. The last 12 months, more than 130 with over 90% clearance. There's no one more qualified to talk about the auction process. So thanks for joining us here today, Shaun.
No, thanks, Tim.
So I'm going to dive right in. Obviously, the market's changing. Clearance rates are dropping. The method of sale becomes more of a question. What's the right method, not just for the consumer, but also for you as an auction operator or as a business person? This is obviously a question that's coming up in living rooms and in your office. Now, this is obviously something that you've always been a big fan of. Do you remember, what was the origin of your auction journey? Do you remember how it all started, your love of auctions?
Yeah, I do actually. I was working in Thornley and I was doing private treaties there for about 6 months, and my average days on market were about 120 and I couldn't sell a thing. Then I joined Hookers in Newtown, and when I started there, they said, you've got to do auctions. And I remember my clearance rate was double, like my days on market literally halved.
Wow.
My average days went from about 120 to 24. So
Unbelievable.
more than half. The biggest thing I learned from it was the fact that it created urgency. There was a deadline involved, and that I was focused on this deadline. When there was private treaty, it just felt like I put it on, I was just waiting. Whereas the auction set a time limit, which I was focused on, the buyer was focused on, the owner was focused on. So in that period of time, I could get a deal across the line.
And this is such a good point, this days on market piece, right? Because in a declining marketplace where prices are going to continue to be challenged as interest rates go up, there's nothing more dangerous to protecting a vendor's price than time. What did you change as an agent? You mentioned days on market, and what a critical thing that's starting to control, something to influence your ability to maintain your level of sales. What did you change as an agent moving from private treaty to auction?
Okay, there was a number of things. Was that I had 3 weeks to get my owner into the headspace to meet the market, and that was through doing the 3 Saturdays, 3 midweeks, doing the callbacks on Monday, calling the owner with feedback, then doing a written report. And I actually like to do at least one face-to-face per week, because a lot can get lost in transition when it's over the phone. In a report, you don't actually get their feedback, so I like that face-to-face, because when you do the hard-hitting questions face-to-face, you'll get a reaction, but a reaction's good because there's a bit of pillow talk that happens after that, and you find there's pain, and then afterwards they come to terms with it.
Now, I love this because, we were just talking to your team the other day, and a lot of these basic fundamentals of real estate seem to go by the wayside because, for example, we didn't really need face-to-face meetings. We didn't really need to worry about vendor reports. Prices were going up. Feedback was easy. And the importance of coming back to just the fundamentals of getting back together with your vendors, telling them what's actually happening in the marketplace. Have you found that that's the part of the process that you've really had to refine with your team as much as yourself?
Look, yes, I remember the early days where I always wanted to be the owner's best friend, right? I didn't want to actually give them what they didn't want to hear. But my clearance rate actually wasn't that high in the early days, right? And I learned a very important thing. The sooner you start telling, and then look, the first week in the campaign, I don't want to be too hard because you actually got to build a bit of trust and they've got to like you, right? So what I find in that first week, you say we're building the interest, look, we need at least 2 Saturdays and then we'll sort of know where we stand. After that second Saturday, that's when you align a face-to-face meeting on that Monday to say, we've had 2 Saturdays, here's the feedback, here's where it's at. And then by that time you've built trust, and that trust is so important for them to be able to have open communication.
Now, you just raised a perfect point, right? Because trust is usually won or lost after the first week of the campaign. Because obviously we've all sat there in the listing presentation, we've made a bunch of promises, we've filled their hope with what we may or may not be able to achieve. But usually if we don't deliver week 1, then we're really backpedaling. What's most important to you in delivering, I guess, or creating that trust in week 1?
I think that portraying that, well, not portraying, but actually getting people through the open home. Traffic through the open home. Then you start getting offers. Now, phoning the buyers, where would you make an offer? And just even getting a text from them or an email, even if it's lower than the owner's expectation, just to show them that you've got that energy, that you're getting offers, because there's nothing worse at the end of the campaign. They go, he didn't even get us an offer, right? So I think offers and getting traffic through and communication, show that you're communicating, not just texting people and emailing people the numbers, but actually emailing, texting, calling them, and face to face.
So it really is diving deeper, and I know this is something that your team specifically, but not just Team Stoker, but your whole office. It's all about driven traffic now. A lot of offices, a lot of agents, they got in the habit of posting it online, showing up to the open. Now that's starting to dry up a little bit. What is your team doing to keep that driven traffic moving?
Okay, great question. Look, I'm being fortunate enough, I've got a team of 4. So I've got one person who's solely focused on getting buyers through privately. So that means a lot more. So not just relying on the open homes, is actually those really top A buyers that have been looking for 2 to 3 or 6 weeks. They've been to a number of auctions, they're jaded through the process, and if you find them the right property, they're going to buy it. Get them through privately, make them feel special. And you find your success rate goes up. That's what I learned in the early days. So.
And this is such a critical moment, which is, again, comes back to the fundamentals of real estate, right? It's not just about the inspections, it's not just about the opens, but it's about the stickiness of buyers, keeping them engaged with the property, bringing them back through a property. So the driven inspection, it's about identifying who's making offers, who's missed out. This must be a big piece of your listing presentation.
Oh, it is. Look, I find the good agents right at the moment will make more money than ever. But it is a big piece. If you can demonstrate how you work a database, how you're going to get buyers and demonstrate to them your A buyers, and those buyers from this campaign are going to get through their property, there's almost going to be a sense of security with you. So look, I think if you demonstrate an appraisal that the process, and during that process, the communication you're going to show them, and also the buyers you're going to attract, your listing rate will go through the roof. Because
This is an interesting part, right? Because when you ask a lot of agents at the moment, you say, well, what's the problem? Is it the vendor or is it the buyer? A lot of people will say, there's no traffic, there's not enough buyers, the buyers have gone, they've got lower interest, that's the reason we're struggling to sell. Now, more interestingly, this is really a marketplace where speed can kind of kill deals, right? Because we go and get that ready and willing buyer to a vendor that's perhaps not informed or educated in the marketplace. So do you mind talking through, I guess, your process when you're listing property about the importance of running through week 1, week 2, and actually maintaining the auction day as the critical point for creating the sale?
See, look, and that's the thing. I've noticed a lot of agents when I talk to them sell stuff prior, and you can get away with that in a good market, right? And in a market where it's turning, if you've got a good buyer and you haven't lined up your owner well enough, and that buyer, if that buyer comes in the first week, they make a good offer and your owner doesn't accept it, you've got to try and keep them for another 3 weeks, right? So it's a bit of a dangerous game, right? So what I always try and do is say, no, we're going to auction. If you're going to make an offer, make sure it's an offer that's you've done the changes, you've done the building and pest, you've got yourself organised and you're ready for the day, right? I prefer auction because what I find is what someone's willing to pay at the beginning, halfway through, and on the day itself is very different price, right? They want a bargain price at the beginning. Normally by the middle they want market price. And under social evidence, hopefully you can get 2 people. At the moment, 2 or 3 is a luxury, right? But if you can get them there, what you find is social proof will play a massive role. And you find on the day of auction, your owner is in a better position to negotiate at a lower rate as well, because it's face to face. Right.
And that's a critical point because of 2 things. 1, they've built the trust because they've seen evidence of the work you've done. 2, they've obviously been informed because they've actually seen feedback, they've received offers, and they've had a couple of weeks to see what current market sales are taking place. And 3, they've got the competition of the buyers inside the room ready to do the deal. So this must be something that you really have to inform, get your vendors on board in terms of the set to sell. What's the strategy, and get them on board with that strategy, right?
And I think I'll just touch on a point which I think is really important, and I think that's where I naturally am good at. And I think a lot of people have to be more, rather than just feedback, right? And going, this is where the buyers are. You've actually got to get inside the owner's head. Right? Because no owner normally sells because of the price. It's normally a reason behind it. They're upsizing, death, it's a deceased estate. They're working from home now, so they need the office, right? These things aren't based on what they'll get for their property. It's driven through they're wanting to change their life, right?
And this becomes an interesting thing, I think needs to be an education shift from all realtors from the last couple of years, is that we fell in love with price. Because it was easy, right? Record price, building record, record. People are starting to get embarrassed if they don't achieve a record price.
Yeah, that's true.
And it needs to be the removal from price from the equation, because that removal obviously allows you to create those records, but equally create sales if they might not be the record, right? So how do you go through the right questions, the qualifications, understanding the motivation of the vendor more so than just the price?
Well, and that's the big thing, because a lot of the owners, and because this has happened so quickly, a lot of owners haven't actually seen what they've been looking for being hit, because a lot of owners are holding out for price at the moment, so they're not selling. So they're not seeing the results coming through, which is making it harder for them to make the leap of faith that they get a lower price, got the money in the bank, and then go. So I think that's where that trust element comes and go, look, your place has come off 10%, but that one has as well. And I think most people in my area are upsizing. So if they...
it's actually a positive.
Yeah, because look, if their place has gone from 2 million to 1.8, the other one's probably gone for 3 million to 2.7.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're making 100%, 1,000 gain, right?
Now, this is such a good piece to actually talk through, because what you're saying here is it's actually going deeper than just the promise of price. Because the biggest fear of a lot of agents in this marketplace is you don't want to overpromise in the living room. You don't want to sit in the living room and obviously, you say, well, your place is maybe worth 1.8 and it might have been worth 2. The fear is that other agents might be saying, oh, we could still achieve 2. So there's a balancing act there, but what you're saying is actually help them to see not just the promise of the sale, but actually assisting them through the process of what's next, the next step, the ambition, right?
I think that's really important. And look, when you initially do that appraisal, every owner wants to hear the dream price. But I think if you say, look, ultimately you've got to take away the price. What we've got to do is make sure we present the property to its best ability. We've got to take exceptional marketing. We attract every buyer, the best buyers in that marketplace to come through your home. Then I know I can look you in the eye on that Friday night before the Saturday and say, we've done everything possible to maximise this result. Do you agree?
Love it.
Right? Because once they say we've done everything, well, I know this is true market value. Right? And I think that's important. That's why, you've got to make sure that your marketing, your presentation, and you do those things you say you do, so you can look them in the eye and say that day. Right.
And that's got to be such an important thing, because again, it's such a balancing act against the fear of what other agents might be saying, right? And what you're effectively saying is buy into my process, buy into the trust element. I love what that line. I want to be able to look at you in the eye if I'm giving you an offer and be able to say we have achieved the best in marketplace.
That's right.
100%. So let's talk about the concern of vendors, right? Because when people look at auctions, typically they only look at clearance rates. And the scary thing about that is obviously when you consider private treaty, well, there is no metric. So clearance rates have gone from 80 or 90%, everything sells on auction day, to now 50, 60%, which you would know is still actually pretty good, but it's scary to some. So what's happening what would you say to a vendor that's sitting there and they're saying, Shaun, how could auctions still be the right method of sale? Haven't you seen clearance rates lately?
They do say that every time. They go, look, the market's turning. Why would we do an auction? And I always say, look, it's the best time to do it. The worse the market, the better the auction process works.
Explain that.
Because I say, look, if we put a price on it, and your best buyers are going to come through here in the first 2 weeks. The educated ones that are ready to go are going to come in here. If we've got a price attached to it and they don't see value, they go and move on straight away. It's very hard to get them back.
Love it.
So auction's a 3-stage process. You've got prior to auction itself, which is unconditional. You've got auction day to do a deal. And for whatever reason, we don't get the price we want. We've got all that valuable feedback to market the property at a reasonable level. And statistics show within 2 to 3 weeks, you'll get a deal done. So you get 3 goes at it.
Love it. And so it's kind of explaining, well, what's most important? Well, a couple of things. 1, we need to make sure that we actually get the property sold. What's most likely to achieve the sale? 2, what's most likely to keep the sale the shortest version? And 3, what's most likely to get you the best price, which is obviously the competitive nature of this, right?
And I also add on to that, and I go, look, a lot of times right now, I'll be up front. You've got one person coming to auction. So you've got to make sure you're choosing someone that's a great negotiator.
Love it.
Not only a great presenter and can present the property, get the traffic through, but on that day, he's got your back. And I said, at the moment, and they go, Shaun, would you still have an auction with one person? I said, 100% you would. You know why? Because you're negotiating with someone face to face. Whereas if you ring them up and say, look, the owner's another 50,000 away, they go, yeah, let me think about that. They both talk to go, let's give them another 10.
Yes.
And then they took themselves out of it.
Interesting.
Right? Whereas face to face, you've got them there, they want the keys, and the owner's there. And so you've got all three there to do a deal.
Now that's the most interesting part, coming back to that compression selling, keeping the time, which is probably, again, the fourth part. How do we keep the time down? Well, we bring the buyer there. What negotiation might take 15 minutes or 30 minutes, otherwise might take 2 weeks and have a cool-off period.
That's right. One thing I also love about the auction process is valuers don't get involved, right?
There you go.
And so, it's an unconditional sale, then the valuer comes through. Because what you'll find in a private treaty scenario is that you do offer and acceptance, you do a 5-day cooling off. The valuer then comes through, has to substantiate the amount. If he comes in at a lower level, they're not going to pay the money. They're not going to go get mortgage insurance. So the great thing about auction, it's an unconditional sale.
Love it. So let's dive deeper into the process of the business side of this. So we've explained this from the vendor's side, but especially as a leader of a big team, a very successful team, the importance of maintaining this in terms of creating consistency of cash flow inside your business. So, look, we discussed this a little bit earlier around the auction process actually keeps the agent accountable, right? It actually keeps them accountable to a time frame to get the vendor down. So what are the key internal things that you think or enforce or train to your team that are critical moments that need to take place?
Okay. One is when you do have a buyer show interest, and especially that's going to come in the first Saturday and second Saturday, and you've got to keep them there for another 2 weeks. You've got to get them spending money, right? What you've got to do is make sure they're downloading the building and pest. They're getting the changes done. Because once they've invested themselves on the property, you've got them.
Keeps them sticky.
Keeps them sticking. So what I always say to my buyers is, look, you've come through that first Saturday. I know auctions are 3 weeks away, but another buyer has actually downloaded the building and pest, done the changes. They're in a position to potentially make an offer at the end of this week or early next week. I'd put yourself in it, because what will happen is if you do have interest, I'm going to call, if you do have interest and that buyer makes an offer and it's an unconditional offer because they've done all their changes, and I come and call you and you go, Shaun, I'm not prepared.
You've got to be ready.
You've got to be ready. So what I'd ask you to do is download the building and pest, make the changes, so if any offers come in, you're ready to go straight away. What it does also, once they do that, that you can nurture them to the auction floor.
So when we're dealing with the process here, we're not just protecting the vendor, we're not just protecting you, the agent, but it's still the best process for the buyer to buy most transparently as well. So how are you explaining and educating the buyer as to how they can best take control of the process?
So a lot of times your best buyers come through in the first Saturday.
That's right.
And sometimes you can get a great buyer come through and your owner's not going to be in a best headspace. They need another 2 weeks of education. Right? So what you say to that buyer, go, look, it's been one Saturday. This is an owner's biggest life decision. They need that second Saturday. I'd get yourself organised. Get going to the building and pest, do the changes, get ready. After the second Saturday, then we can put something in front of them. But by then they've had 2 Saturdays and we're in a position then to put something in front of them.
Love this. So this is about transparency of the process for the vendors. It's about transparency of process for the buyers. And ultimately, when there is challenge in terms of price, it allows all 3 parties, yourself being included in that, to really have the best idea of, well, this is fair market value.
That's right. Well, because you would have had 2 Saturday opens.
That's right.
And I stated in the appraisal, those first 2 Saturdays is where your best interest comes. Your numbers go up and then the 3rd week they start coming down. So by then they're educated, they're in a position to listen to an offer. You just got to be careful when running an auction, you just don't jump on an offer.
That's right.
Because sometimes that person will pay more at auction, and if you get another person, auction's going to be a lot more powerful.
So let's go to the final part of this, the final part of this puzzle, which is post-auction.
Yes.
So, okay. We're thinking about clearance rates. Clearance rates are going down even for the best operators. However, the number that we don't usually talk about is how, if we were to run the auction process, how it still enables us to get a deal done far quicker post-auction. So we've gone through the campaign, we've gone through 3 weeks, we haven't managed to attain the price that we need to get the deal done.
Yep.
What's the process that you follow post-auction that enables us to get the vendors and the buyers in a position to make a deal?
Okay, well, look, I think that's really is, you say, look, we've had 3 weeks of buyers coming through. Here, the reports are saying this is where the market value is. If we put a price at this level, it shows that we'll get a sale across the line, right? Your owner then goes, Shaun, we're at a higher level. If we put it on a higher level, there's a good chance you're not going to sell this based on the feedback, right? It's just going to sit there for another 2 or 3 months. That's when you've got to use motivation.
Yes.
Right? Are you an A seller that's looking for a price and you've got a backup plan? Because if you've got a backup plan, that's fine. Like, so we put it at this level, but it may not sell at that level. So what's your backup plan?
Yeah.
Right? But if you're an owner and you really want to sell and you want to move on to the next chapter of your life, this is the price I'd put it on because this is where the feedback's coming in and you're more likely to get a sale in the next 2 weeks.
Got it.
All right?
So this is the piece here where it comes down to trust. It comes back to understanding the vendor's situation. But the hardest thing for a lot of agents
and that's all face-to-face, by the way.
Of course. The hardest thing with this is a lot of agents struggle to have these conversations, struggle to tell them the truth, tell them what they need to hear because they're afraid of offending or upsetting our owners. You were just telling me a story about, one of the owners that you've just had where you've told them the truth. They've actually become upset with you. Do you mind talking about, well, why did you have to tell them the truth? How did you build back that trust? And I guess that conversation, how you played that out?
Oh, look, it's 3 siblings, a deceased estate. They wanted X amount. I had to tell them it was worth 500,000 more. We'd had the 2 Saturdays. I knew exactly where it was sitting.
Yeah.
Right. And it was 500,000 away where they wanted. I called a meeting with all 3 of them, and I delivered that. Okay, here's the feedback. Here's where the buyers are suggesting it's between this level and this, which is 500 less, and it was like a bombshell that hit them.
Wow.
Like tears, and they were upset, and they didn't disbelief that the market could change that fast. And I said it has.
No one complained when the market went up that fast, right?
But I had empathy, and I said, look, we're doing everything in our power to get. We've actually got 4 people interested, which we do. We've got 4 people interested on this campaign. It's running right now, and so I know I'm going to have a good auction. I just need to get the owners into the right headspace.
Yes.
And I spent 20 minutes there explaining, what the buyer's feedback, why. They rang me the next morning and they go, Shaun, you know what? That was a bombshell. I don't think we're on the same page here. She goes, I don't think you've got our back.
Yeah.
Right? I think actually you're working on behalf of the buyer. We're in a bit of disbelief. And I go, I've got your back. I said, I was just delivering what you needed to hear because I said, I don't want you to get to auction day
and then deliver the bombshell then.
And deliver the bombshell. I'm preparing you. And I know it's hard, but I've got your back. It's in my DNA. I said, it's what I do. I need to get you the best price. You've got to have that belief. I said, there's 2 things that happen here. From this point on, do you want me not to tell you what's happening and you turn up on the day and whatever happens, happens? No, we want to hear the feedback.
Okay.
A second thing is what we could do, and this is what I do say to owners, so they know you've got your back. And some owners take you up on this, they didn't, but I'll say, come into my office on Monday between 10 and 12. We'll sit in the boardroom, I'll put it on loudspeaker, and you as the owner can listen to the conversations firsthand from the buyers. You'll see that I've got your back. And you'll hear firsthand what they're saying feedback-wise. Now, these particular owners said we don't want to hear what the buyers have to say. But some owners will actually come in and it's powerful. Yeah. When they do come in and they can hear it and they can hear that you've got your back, the trust goes up, but they come down very fast.
Interesting.
So I actually do like it.
I love that. What a powerful process. So obviously part 1 is having the confidence to tell the owners the truth.
Yep.
Sounds simple when you say it out loud, right?
Yep.
2, being able to explain what this actually means. It's not just giving them the bombshell, but explaining what this actually means.
Yep.
C, understanding their motivation and helping them understand how this can help them to get from where they are to where they want to go. And then continuing to use empathy to maintain and build trust.
That's right.
So in all of this together, and I'm going to use this as a closing point, you've been doing this for a long time. It comes very naturally to you. You've got a young team of developing agents that need to develop this skill set. How are you helping as a leader, and what advice would you give to other leaders to help the young agents coming through to deliver this feedback?
I think, look, it comes with a bit of maturity. And look, it's like anything in life. You know, it takes 4 to 5 years. They say you have to do 100 auctions by yourself before you master it. Right, so it does take time. So it's not like something you can just do instantly. It took me years before I perfected it.
Yep.
But what I would say is communication's key.
Yep.
Making sure that you're always talking to the owner, so then they feel like you've got their back. Making sure that you're doing written reports, face-to-face meetings, and working with buyers and getting them in and getting offers.
Yeah.
Because whatever happens on the day, they're going to have you've got trust with them then.
Yeah.
And so when they go to put a price on it, they'll listen to you. If you don't get the sale on the auction and don't get them down in time, because it can happen, they'll have the trust to listen to you about price.
Love it. Shaun, you're an absolute excellent operator. You've been very generous with your time. We appreciate it.
Thanks,
Good
Tim.
luck to you.
Right, good, mate.